Well, hello everyone, it's Stacy here, and I'm just coming with you today with some sad news that my dad, my father, Carlton Aloysius Murphy, made his transition to the other side on Wednesday morning at 7 a.m. And it's been a very interesting journey that I've taken with my dad. If you've been in my community for any length of time, you know that I've had an up and down relationship with Carlton, with my father, my biological dad. And with his passing, it has brought so many different emotions have been coming up, and none of it has been anger. In fact, his passing has brought me some massive awakenings and awareness that I really truly believe in the bottom of my heart is taking me off the path of suffering. And it's interesting that when people are no longer here, the perspective of the pain or the hurt you feel that you endured with them takes on a whole different outlook on things. And when I said I was going through a range of emotions, when I first was notified, my mom is the one that actually told me, um, come to find out that on my birthday, which was on the 15th, um, his health took a turn for the worst. And he was in the hospital in Florida. And the doctors said that to my stepmom that he probably won't live until Friday, which would have been this week. And but my mom told my stepmom not to let me know anything, especially on my birthday, and to wait until afterwards, and that she would break the news to me. Well, he passed Wednesday morning, I understand, peacefully. And when I first heard, I was numb at first. It was like, oh, really? It was like that was my reaction at first. And I was just kind of sitting there. Ironically, I was getting ready to meditate when I got the call from my mom. And after, she shared stuff with me, I just sat there. And then there were feelings of sadness, just very deep sadness. And one of the things, and that feeling of sadness is what triggered everything that I feel called to share with you right now, because it ushered in a massive aha in my life. And I know that I am not the only person that has dealt with a situation like this. I'm not unique where that's concerned, unfortunately. But there are so many of us who are like the walking wounded because of very, very difficult, and some people devastating or traumatic experiences that they had with their caregivers growing up. And so, one of the things about my dad's transition, it also has me thinking about how we, either create or and maintain our own suffering. And why is that? Because when I was sitting there and tears started to come down, I was like, why am I feeling this way? And then it went to, really feeling for my stepmom, who I have a big heart for my stepmom, and what she is going through, because she has known my dad for like 25 years. They weren't a couple that entire 25 years, but they've had a relationship and friendship that goes that far back. And when I was thinking about it, I was like, she knows my dad better than I do. She knows my dad better than four of his six children do, because my dad wasn't there for his kids. He was there for the last two because he had to, but the other four, which I'm a part of, he was living his life and we just had to be like, oh, well, kind of a situation. So, that's why I don't know my dad, right? But when I thought about it, I was just like, she knows him better than we do. And so why am I feeling this deep sadness for someone that, in all honesty, I really don't know? I know a piece of him, but I don't know the whole story of who Carlton is. And so that's what kind of triggered why we maintain our own suffering, right? And so what I realized was part of this sadness was me mourning a fantasy of the father I wish I had, but why? Because that is suffering. The ego mind latches onto the fantasy because one of the jobs of the ego is to not feel pain. So sometimes it's easier to hold on to a fantasy so that you don't feel the pain of whatever it is that you are actually going through, right? And so what happens is the ego mind and not the person is continuing the pain. So it was the ego mind in this fantasy of why, my dad couldn't be nurturing and protective. That is what was keeping the pain alive. Not my dad, it was the fantasy, right? Because the ego wants to feel good. The ego wants to be right. The ego wants to be vindicated. If someone hurt you, the ego wants an apology so it can move on. But, in this case with my dad, he's dead. So I'm not going to get an apology. I'm not going to get any of that stuff. I didn't get it when he was alive. And I'm sure as heck not going to get it when he's dead. So what happens is, when we do this, I realize when we do this, in a sense, we're having these expectations and we're arguing with a ghost. And who do you think is going to win that conversation? It surely is not going to be you or I that is going to win that conversation. So when I thought about this deeper, it's like we stay on the path of suffering because of this, because of all of this. But like I said, a person doesn't have to be dead for this to apply. Because if you're still suffering from a deep pain from someone that is alive but is no longer in your life, they are in one way dead to you. So these dynamics also include you in this as well. And so I really looked at, that's when I really understood the Buddhist concept on the path of suffering and the path of happiness. It's the ego mind wanting to, maybe one day he'll show that he cares or something like that. I'm in my mid-50s. I think that ship has come and gone by now. And then now that he's made his transition, what's up with that fantasy? Because what happens is I was like, you know what? I no longer want to be on this path of suffering because I'm really through his transition are seeing the illusion to that grain of fantasy that I was holding on to. Yes, I let a lot of that go. I let a lot of it go. But from his transition and the sadness I was experiencing and some of the thoughts and feelings that were coming up actually showed me there was still a grain of that I was still holding on to. Because you know what, everybody? The reality is that Carlton was the father I needed so my soul could heal and be happy. And I'll say that again. He was the father I needed so my soul could heal and be happy. And some of you may say, how can I say that? Well, I follow and practice, my indigenous spirituality of my ancestry, as well as the Buddhist teachings. And in all of in those concepts, there is a belief in reincarnation. Now, I always joke about it and I always say, yeah, I may believe in reincarnation, but this is the only life I'm living right now. So I'm going to make it a good one. But part of taking all the jokes out of it, part of reincarnation is the soul comes to this earth so that it could heal, it can experience, and depending on what the soul agreement is, so they can be a vessel of healing on this earth. Why do you think it's called the Earth School? Is because when we come here, no matter what tradition you believe, whether you're spiritual, agnostic, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, right? Sufi, Gnostic, Kabbalah, it doesn't matter. What happens is, whatever your tradition is, the trials and tribulations that we go through is our opportunity to heal so that we are free for the rest of our life to experience what we were here to truly be and experience without the suffering. See, but what happens is the only way that you're going to heal through whatever pain or trauma that you have is you have to confront it. Just like when my students come to me and they're like, oh, I want courage, I want confidence. Well, you know how you get your courage and confidence? The universe will put a situation in your path that will require you to step up to the plate and have that courage and confidence. And then when you see, oh my gosh, I did it and I wasn't struck down by lightning, well, guess what? That increases your courage and confidence to try it another time. And then that becomes easier. And then you do it again and you do it again and you do it again. That is how you get it. And the same thing applies to releasing yourself from the path of suffering. And so you can step into your true freedom, which is your path of happiness. So that's how I say where I got the father I needed so my soul can learn its lessons on this earth school so that I could be happy. And so we get what we wish for, but many times it doesn't look like how we expect it to look. That's the big thing about manifestation, people, and intentions. And you put something out there, but you have to let go on the expectation. Because when you have expectation, it leads to the suffering because it leads to your disappointment. So what happens is I learned, just like how my Buddhist teacher said, you can plan, but expect half your plans not to go according to plan. And as long as you have that in perspective, you will not be thrown off by the pitfalls and the speed bumps that you will get along the path of life. So I even thought about this. Who said a father is supposed to be A, B, C, D? Who said a father is supposed to be loving? Who said a father is supposed to be nurturing? Who said all of that? And so we believe that. And if we have a different experience, then we feel that we failed or we missed out in some way, or what is wrong with me? Why I didn't get that experience in my family. So we set ourselves up for failure. But what happens is, like I said, we get exactly what we need for our healing. And so what happens is if you missed the lesson that the universe is trying to give you through your parents or your caregivers, by remaining a victim, then you did miss out, right? And so, like I said, everybody, this is why it's called the Earth School. And all of this came exploding to me yesterday. Yes, yesterday. By the time you get this, I'll have a couple of days to process this a little bit more. But this is one way for me to heal and to process this myself. And I can only do it in the way I know how, and that is to teach and to share what has come up for me. We are here to learn our lessons of healing in body, mind, and heart so we can tap into our version of happiness, not someone else's version of happiness, not Stacey's version of happiness, your version of happiness. Because my dad, he was a part of the dark so I can know and recognize and appreciate the light. My dad taught me to be my own person, even if others don't accept me. He taught me to stand up for myself regardless of someone's station or rank in life. He taught me the importance of ethics even when you're doing something unconventional. He showed me the ethical way of putting my needs and desires first as a form of self-love and self-care. For my dad taught me all of these valuable lessons because he was the exact opposite of every statement I just said. This is how you turn lemons into lemonade, everybody. This is how you go from being a victim to starting to empower yourself. This is how you go from suffering to happiness. Because suffering is wanting the fantasy. Your happiness is about accepting the reality. Because the reality is, if I was supposed to have a loving, nurturing dad, that's exactly what he would have been. But that is not the reality. That would not have given me the lessons that I needed to learn on this earth school. So when I spoke to my stepmom and really wanting to hold her, ironically, I'm the only one of his children she really even wants to be there. And when I did in that moment, I said to her, I want to thank you so much for being there for him. Because, yeah, he wasn't there for any of at least 4 of his kids. So we weren't there during this time. We really didn't even know what he was about. But what happens is, it doesn't matter who you are. No one deserves to die alone. No one deserves to die without knowing that someone loves them. So I'm so, so happy and grateful that she was there for him. And after he was told that she would be okay and that she would be taken care of, that is when he made his transition a couple of hours later. He was waiting to get that confirmation. And so there's a large part of me. He's with the ancestors now. He is with my ancestors. He will go up on my ancestral altar. That's the tradition in my family. He will go up there. And I do feel that I will actually be closer to my dad in his death than I was in his life. And so I appreciate being given that opportunity. I really appreciate, because the moment we accept reality is the moment that we let go of the pain and that we can finally heal. We then let go of the ego story to really see the purpose that the individual was in our life to help us in the end versus latching onto the harm. You know, as I teach radical forgiveness, because I follow it very deeply, and it's Radical Forgiveness by Colin Tipping. And he says, people don't do things to you, they do things for you. And what that means is, whatever pain or trauma that you've gone through, whoever's involved in that, they did it for you so that you can step into your healing and so you can step into your greatness. See, I love the person that I am now. And he was a part of that story. So I have to accept that as well. So thank you for giving me this space to share and heal, and to wish for you, as I shared with my dad. I got closure with him about 3 months ago. He called me out of the blue, which he never does. I found out from my stepmom that he was reaching out to people that he had harmed as a way of, I guess, trying to apologize, I guess. I don't know. But I did call him back and, he didn't pick up. But this is what I said, and this is what I shared with him. I said to him that, I have made peace with our relationship and the dynamic that we had. And I don't hold any malice or anger or hatred towards him. And I said that I have found this peace, and that I hope, and what I do hope for him is that he finds peace in the decisions that he's made in his life. And that's all I hoped for him, was him to find that peace. And so now that he's no longer on this plane, he now is able to actually see his whole soul story, and he's able to finally have and see that peace. And with that, everyone, we are complete, and namaste.